principal and athletic director meeting. With spring semester getting ready to begin, we felt it was important to have a meeting, get that together with you all, answer some questions regarding upcoming second semester eligibility. So as we go through, if you have questions, just simply put them in the chat. We'll kind of manage that and go through and answer those as needed. If something comes up and it's just specific to your school, then just after the meeting, if you will, just give us a call and we'll be glad to assist you with that. Just one of the reminders with spring sports, we have a lot of sub-varsity teams that are out there, and a lot of our middle school athletes will be coming to participate on the sub-varsity level. So with transfers, you're going to need to make sure you are communicating with that middle school, making sure that that middle school student has been with that middle school, was either, started there at 7th grade or was with them as a 7th grader if they're an 8th grader. And if not, then you will need to look at them as a transfer, work with the middle school to find out, when they moved or how they became a student with that middle school. Looking at that for the middle school athletes. Not only our middle school athletes do we have to look at, we do have student athletes at the high school that will come out for spring sports that possibly have not participated in anything thus far this year. So just double check, make sure your coaches are communicating and asking these athletes, were you at this school last year? Just double checking. The earlier you can start communicating and finding out if you have a transfer, then the quicker you are to find out if they're going to be eligible to participate for your school. So just want to remind you to double check on those transfers, tell your coaches to double check on those transfers so you can get the paperwork needed to get that started. So any questions before we move into second semester eligibility? And we've been getting a lot of those questions coming in, so we felt it was important to definitely touch on that this morning. Charlie, do you see any questions in the chat? I don't see any. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie and let him talk with you all.
Hey, good morning. We'll just jump straight right into it here. You got second semester starting. I'm going to share my screen with you here. Go to the bylaws. This is for you right there in the bylaws. I believe it should be on page, looks like page 5 on my document here, but it should be right there in there for academic requirements for you. So what you're looking at right here, number 2, to be eligible the second semester, the student must meet one of the following conditions. If they were eligible for first semester, and that doesn't mean that they were eligible and played something, that means they were academically eligible either way. They must pass the equivalent of 4 half units during the first semester. If they did not meet the eligible requirements, then he or she must pass the equivalent of 5 half units during the first semester. And then we lay out for you in that box right there examples what that would be. If you're on an A-B schedule, you could also be on a 7-period day schedule. Some schools are still using that 7 or 8 period day. You would use this as well. A-B, some classes one day, some the next. Basically, you're earning no credits at the halfway point. All your credits are going to come at the end of the year. If you're in that situation, if you are eligible first semester, then you must pass the equivalency of 4 classes. If you were not eligible first semester, then you pass the equivalency of 5 classes. Okay, so what you have there is nobody's earning any half credits. A lot of times there's confusion from ADs or principals when they go to guidance, and guidance says, well, they didn't earn a half unit. If you're in a AB or a 7-class day, you're not going to earn a half unit. Nobody's going to give them a half unit on their transcript. If they've passed 5 classes, then the understanding would be they're halfway home to those 5 credits. So that's why we say in here, if you were eligible first semester, you passed 4 classes. If you were not eligible, you got to pass 5. Now, if you're in that AB or the 7-period day where no credits are earned at the halfway point, you got to remember there's no opportunity there for credit recovery from the first semester grades because there's no credits earned or lost at that point in time. Okay, so if you're one of those school districts that you don't give credits at the halfway point, you're not earning an opportunity to earn back a credit through credit recovery. So they're going to be kind of, just out of luck at that point in time. Now, if you're on a 4x4 schedule where at the end of the first semester, your students have earned credits or half units, then the following would apply. They're eligible first semester, they would earn the equivalency of 2 units, and that's credits. If they weren't eligible, they'd have to earn 2.5. So if I'm in a 4x4, that would mean I would have to earn 2.5 units. And that half is in there essentially if they had that government or econ class for the first semester, they get a half credit for it, whereas at the end they don't. Now, if you're in another scenario that we don't have covered here, for example, you're in an AB block, or you're in a 7-period, a long, short, skinnies and longs, and whatever your district calls it. I know everybody's got something a little bit different, where kids are in year-long classes at the same time they're in classes that can earn credits. All right, remember those credits, if I pass a full credit, that is the equivalent of 2 half units. Okay, so if you go back up to the top, if I'm in, I've essentially have to earn the equivalency of 4 half units if I was eligible first semester. Okay, if you think about it in that terms, I've got to earn 4 half units, which is 2 units when you add them all together. And if I wasn't eligible first semester, I've got to earn the equivalency of 5 half units. So if I earn a full credit at Christmas or at the end of first semester, and I fail my other semester class, but I pass all 5 of my other year-long classes, then I've got 5 half units in those year-long classes right there. And that's what I needed if I was not eligible for first semester, and I've got more than I need if I was eligible. Okay. Any questions on the credit situation there? Maybe you've seen any questions. Okay. And look, if you get confused on something, please pick up the phone and call us. We're more than happy to help walk you through it as it is. If you've got a question, just, you could talk to your guidance directors, but I would pick up the phone and call us as well. And you're going to run into some confusing things, I can promise you. One of the things is if they don't meet this, what's outlined in the bylaws in this box here and this number 2, they're not going to be eligible. And every year we run into situations where we have kids with a 4.9 or 5.5 GPA, 1350 on the SAT. They've already got everything to graduate, going to play in college. They've got a scholarship, but they took 2 classes in the fall and they didn't get enough credits. I mean, they're out of luck. There's nothing they can do. That's why it's very important that you make sure everybody's enrolled in a certain number of classes. Another couple questions that have been coming up with second semester eligibility has been, what do we do with some students who are on a IEP? Same thing you would do with them at the end of the year for the fall. If they are being served under an IEP where they're on a non-diploma track, and if they're meeting the requirements of their individual education plan, then they're going to be good to go. So you would need to check with their special ed teacher to see if they're meeting that IEP successfully. Now don't be fooled by someone who'll call and say, well, my child is a resource IEP student and they're meeting those goals, they're good. If they're on a diploma track, they've got to meet the diploma credits. Okay, and there are differences there now. The non-diploma track, the IEP is their transcript, for lack of better purposes. If they're meeting those goals, they're good. Any questions on the special education students? Okay, so you've got 2 credit recovery units. Let me just share this with you too. Typically, in a normal year, you've got the first semester ending somewhere between the 1st of December and the middle of January for almost 98% of our schools. It becomes very easy because everybody's ending about roughly the same time. All right, when can I put a student on eligibility? When can they meet eligibility when the semester's over? So here's the deal. If once the grades are in your system as a final grade, okay, and the semester is over, they are good. So let's say today was the last day of the semester in your school district, and you've got a game tonight that you want Charlie, who was not eligible in the fall, to play. Okay, school gets out at 3 today. We consider your semester over at 3:01 today, because there's no other opportunity after 3 o'clock to earn anything for first semester, because y'all have now rolled over into second semester. If all the grades for Charlie are finalized in Power School, then you can get Charlie an eligibility right then. If Power School grades don't come in till Tuesday, you got to wait till Tuesday to determine whether I'm going to be eligible or not, because you can't assume that what's going to come in is what the teacher is telling you it is. If they're finalized in Power Schools and the semester is over, from that moment, you have the opportunity to put them on that second semester eligibility. Now, that is important because, again, you can add wrestlers and basketball players to your eligibility right now, or once the second semester hits, if they were not eligible in first semester. So if Charlie wasn't eligible by rule academically in first semester, but I earned that during first semester for second semester, and you want me to play basketball now, you can put me on eligibility for second semester once your district and school have met the end of your semester. Okay, now with that, this not being a very normal year, please keep in mind there are some districts that will not finish first semester until early February. As you are well aware, early February, we're starting spring sports. Typically, spring sports are practicing and scrimmaging well after first semester ending for 99 or 100% of our districts. This year, that may not be the case. If your school district is still in first semester because of your start time, once the spring sports get here, you would use their first semester eligibility up until first semester ends, because that's all you have. There are 2 sports that allow you to be eligible first semester and then be eligible for the whole season, regardless of what you do in that first semester, and that's basketball and wrestling. Long as I was eligible academically at the start of basketball and wrestling, I'm good to complete that season academically, even if I failed everything in the fall. We don't translate that to our spring sports. So please understand that, Charlie, who was eligible for the fall, semester doesn't end until February the 15th, could actually scrimmage February 12th and 13th for soccer. And then once the semester ends, not be eligible to scrimmage or play anymore academically. So you need to kind of get a little bit ahead of the game on that, and maybe make your coaches aware it may be in the best interest to not scrimmage until your semester's over if possible. But you also need to make everybody aware that if they don't meet the academic requirements to be eligible for second semester, they won't be allowed to scrimmage or play. It's not one of those, I'm good once the season started, therefore I'm just grandfathered in regardless of what I did. So if you're in one of those weird situations where your district has started later this year and that overlap of your district ending and spring sports scrimmaging starting, please pay attention to that, because you may have some kids that aren't eligible to start off with that can become eligible. And then you may have some that are eligible that become ineligible once the semester ends as well. Okay, credit recovery. This credit recovery date is that second Monday in March. So the student athletes have up until that second Monday in March for credit recovery. In the past, we've had, like I shared with you earlier, kids who, great students, already eligible to graduate. They're just something short to be academically eligible. And school finds that out once the semester is over. And then school calls and says, well, can we enroll them in this virtual class up until that second Monday in March? If your second semester date is over for your school and your district, there is no more opportunity to start a new class and to gain a new credit. There is opportunity for credit recovery over something you have failed. And you must meet all those credit recovery requirements. So understand once that semester ends, so just take a look at all your stuff. If you can get a heads up preliminary roster from your spring coaches and your semester has not ended, you can get out in front of that a little bit right now. And again, you'll get some calls. Hey, Charlie's already met every requirement. Does he have to come to school? They still have to meet what the State Department considers to be a full-time student in your school. Okay? I can't graduate and come out and play. I can't just come play for you because I met all my graduation requirements and I'm going to go take half a class. They have to meet the requirement of a full-time student by the State Department of Education. So if you got a question on that, reach out to your guidance or your principal and find out exactly what that definition is. As Amy mentioned earlier, 7th, 8th graders, you're going to handle them the same way you handled them in the fall. They must be meeting district promotion policy at the end of first semester in order to be eligible for second semester. Right? And you're going to need to find out what that is. If they meet that in Planet HS, you're basically going to hit that PA button for them. Okay, any questions, Amy? You seen any questions? I want to stop this share.
Yeah,
Really.
we do have a question from Ben Schoen.
Okay.
You might have to elaborate just a little bit on this, but he says in that scenario of a fall ineligible going on second semester eligibility, what will the line look like in the eligibility in Planet HS?
What I mean by
Are you referring, Ben, to adding somebody for basketball or wrestling?
precisely, like how do we set it up? I know you put in certain boxes for the fall eligibility for as far as the grades, overall passing average, and so on. Obviously in the spring, it's a different set, but I've never done one where I've had to put in a kid who was ineligible in the fall, looking to play basketball at the turn of the semester, which for us will be probably Monday. But do you have to fill all the way across rather than just the couple you normally do for the second semester to justify why they're going on? I don't know if that makes any sense, but I mean, obviously, do we just put that second set across? I mean, I've had Ryan show me how to do this before, but not in this scenario.
I think Charlie's getting ready to pull up Planet HS, but you actually will have to set up a second semester eligibility piece for basketball and wrestling. So you would have to go to your manage second semester where you set up those teams, and basketball and wrestling will be located there. Charlie's going to pull it up so you can see exactly what that looks like, Ben.
Ben, can I use Welcome All? You okay with that? Okay, so what are you going to do? You're going to go, what Ben's asking is if Charlie is not eligible for the fall and is now become eligible for second semester, and I want to put him on basketball or wrestling, what you have to do, you're going to have to do this anyway. You're going to have to go to it will not allow you to put me on your eligibility currently as it is. You're going to have to go to manage semester setup in your Planet HS. Make sure you've got your 2020, 2021 spring semester here set up. Ben's already got his stuff in for all of his spring sports, so he's really ahead of the game. Good job, Ben. But I've got basketball boys, basketball girls, and then I should have one down here for wrestling as well. So I'm going to have to set that up. So let's just say I do wrestling. I've got to put, I've got to type it in the same way I want it to be on here. I don't know your dates, Ben, but I would have to enter all those dates in, and then I would have to save that. And then when I go back to eligibility, I've got to make sure that when I click on wrestling and start new, that I've got the drop down box that, above it, it'll say spring semester for wrestling. If you've got supplementals that are hanging out there that your principal has not approved, it will not let you start a new supplemental for the spring when you've got a fall one hanging, because it won't give you a chance to click new supplemental because you've got one sitting there that needs to be sent to your principal. So you may have to cancel one out to get there. Now, what should happen is when you hit this second semester, and I'm trying to, let me go back here. Oh, man. So when I go to my manage eligibility, Ben, and everybody else, when I start that initial, if it's second semester, it should be reading it to where I put in what is pertinent information. For example, half unit equivalent earned first semester, I would put that number in, because look, if I don't have 4, I wasn't eligible. I'm not eligible. I got to have at least 4, even if I was eligible for the fall, to be there. Does that make sense? You shouldn't be filling in anything else over here. It should be set up to where you start here at 4. I don't think you should be filling in anything here for second semester eligibility, because what we're going to say is if you've got that 4 in there, then it's the understanding that Charlie was eligible at this point right here too. It should automatically read it. If you do have an issue with that, let us know and we'll get something clarifying that out to you.
So basically, if the kid was eligible in the fall, that half is going to have to be 5.
That's correct.
Okay, that's fair enough. That makes sense. I just wanted to make sure I had that right.
Yep.
Charlie, so that you're clear on it, and I haven't looked at it in a while, but it used to say if column 4 is 5 or more, then you fill up column 4 and 5 only. But if column 4 is 4, then you've got to do all the rest of them.
That's correct. That's correct. That is correct. And I believe, and Ben, I think, and it's been a couple years since I've actually entered this in, but I think it's set up now to where if Charlie was on a fall, I think it pulls in this stuff too. I think I could be wrong. But yeah, you're going to have to, if it's that 4, you're going to have to show what I earned here so that it'll make that 4 okay. The commissioner is correct.
Oh, okay, so it'll auto-populate if it's already in there.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
that
correct.
makes sense. I'm clear. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
All right. Amy, if there's no questions, that's all I've got on the eligibility piece for academics.
Yes, I'm not seeing any more questions. And Ben, that was a good question. That was very beneficial for the whole group to see how to set up that second semester eligibility, not just if they have basketball or wrestlers becoming eligible, but for spring sports as well. Also, that was a great question. This time we're going to turn it over to Associate Commissioner Danny Brooks in our office.
Good morning. Good morning. I really wanted to remind you the importance of recaption, recovering, or going back over sportsmanship. Spring semester, we have many more sports involved. Also, there's a lot of tournaments involved. And if a kid is ejected, it becomes very important that the ejection forms are filled out. If it involves a question, that the video is sent to our office immediately. In absence of video, we will go with the ejection form. But oftentimes, with spring sports And tournaments, if an athlete is ejected, that student is out until you hear something from this office. And if we happen to be on spring break or something, it takes a little longer. But my point of emphasis is to make sure that if you have a video to support a situation, that is turned in. And secondly, that you're filling out those ejection forms. I cannot overemphasize the importance of reiterating and going back over with all of your teams the importance of sportsmanship as we end the fall sports right now. Usually closer to the end of the season, those things tend to go up a little bit. So it's important that you go back and reiterate the importance of making sure that you're keeping a cool head in hostile or uncomfortable situations. Also, the spring sports season, just having all of your teams, you got those middle schoolers coming up, having all of your teams going back and talking about the consequences of an ejection. Did I miss anything there, Amy?
I think that's got it. And just reminder that to look at those number of contests that the minimums are for the sports in particular, like baseball, softball's now 3 games. We didn't get to go through a spring sports season last year. I think soccer was 3 games. We didn't get to go through that completely for our schools to understand that has changed from 2 to 3. So just be mindful of that as well.
Amy, we got a question in the chat about soccer red card in South Carolina or a double yellow from Scott McInnes. Scott, we treat it in South Carolina as unsportsmanlike conduct. Straight red's going to get you 3 games, depending on at minimum. A double yellow in South Carolina is an ejectionable offense by NFHS rule, and it's going to be treated as unsportsmanlike conduct as well. And sometimes you'll have soccer coaches argue that it was just an aggressive tackle and that's like a foul in basketball. But if you read the rule book in soccer, it's considered unsportsmanlike conduct when they make that tackle because of the physical nature that it brings to their opponent. So they get that yellow. What I've told all the soccer coaches is, look, if a kid gets 1 yellow, it's just like having 1 technical foul. They need to be understanding that if they get a second one, what's going to happen and what it's going to bring. So if you're up 4 or 5 goals, take them out of the game. Don't risk it. Or take them out of the game altogether. What's better, losing them for half a game or 3/4 of a game, or maybe potentially 3 more? That's what questions that we have to ask. So the only exception to that would be a situation of a denying goal scoring or an inadvertent handball inside the box, which calls for an automatic red card. We don't necessarily treat that as unsporting act simply because of the nature of it. We typically have used 1 game suspension on that.
Danny, anything else that you need to add?
Yeah, just in closing, because a few on this call have asked about our leadership summit that we had on last week. That is available to you still through our website. If you'll go through educational services and click on the leadership summit. As I've shared with many, a powerful, powerful summit. It is certainly worth your athletes and especially your captains of your team going back, and if they didn't participate on the last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday when it was live, going back and taking them through that leadership summit. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Danny. Before we close out with you all this morning, Commissioner Singleton, I'm going to say a few words, but we appreciate you joining us this morning, and we're excited that we got to celebrate champions in the fall and looking forward to closing out winter. But at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Singleton before we end today's session.
Thanks, Ms. Boozer. Good morning to all of you. I apologize for coming on late. Had some other things that I had to address, but you picked a interesting time to become a new AD, a new principal. There's a lot of challenges this year. but I've got to commend you. You've done well as we work our way through it. There's some plus and minuses to that. We've done a lot of things differently this year than we've ever done in the past. So those that have been doing it for years, I'm sure it was a little bit more frustrating because the learning curve was different. Well, those of you that are doing it for the first time, you didn't know any different. So it probably gave you some relief, although I know you were still anxious. Hopefully these video conferences or workshops that we put together are being helpful to you. We've made a commitment that we're going to do more and more of these where you can do it from the convenience of being at your office or at your home without having to travel down to the league office to cover this information. We're always open for providing more information. Just let us know what you need to know. As Amy said earlier, we made it through the fall. We're making it through the winter. And we all know that the biggest challenge before us is the spring, because they had nothing last year. And we want to do all we can to make that work. Although it looks pretty outside and it's going to get even nicer. The weather's going to be nice and things are going to look great. There's still that virus out there. So we can't let our guards down. We've got to stay on top of that. We've got to make sure that we're just as diligent and as intentional this spring as we've been beginning in the fall. Let's treat it like, listen, if at all possible, let's do all we can to make sure that spring sports happen. And that's not taken for granted based on the fact that we've had fall sports and winter sports. From this office, we're always talking about lessons learned. And we're going to continue to take the lessons learned from each sports season and try to be better in the next sports season. I would ask that you do the same thing. You've had some challenges at your school. I mean, I have it from a statewide view. You've got it from a statewide view and a local view. So you have some challenges at your school. Take the lessons learned and apply that so that you maybe things can become a little bit more easier for you. We're doing it here. We're fully committed. Again, I appreciate your efforts. I want to congratulate you on your sports season so far. Those back in August, we didn't know we were going to be playing, but we did, and we got a season. And the commitment again, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We just want to have a season. If we get playoffs, that's great. But if we can get a season and get them playing, that's the goal. That's the goal. And if we keep our eye on that, then I think we'll have a better chance. But if we go in trying to figure out how to win the state championship or how we're going to get the playoffs, I think we may miss some things. Let's just focus on having a season. The rest is going to take care of itself. The playoffs is so unknown because you can be the best team out there. But if you get the virus, the playoffs doesn't wait on you. So we miss out on great opportunities to get things happen. So let's get the season. And if we get to the playoffs, that's wonderful. But the majority of the people have had a chance to play. And that's what we're looking at. Be diligent about that. Sanitation, wearing the mask, social distancing, limited gathering, all those play such a big role for us. With that, Ms. Boozer, I don't have anything else. Again, I just want to express from the South Carolina High School League and all of its membership and exec committee and the staff that we really appreciate what you do.
Okay, thanks to everyone who was able to attend this meeting this morning. Hopefully we shared some important information that will help you as you move into second semester. We wish you the best with spring sports and closing out fall season. Just so you know, this meeting was recorded and we will have that posted on our website later. So if you need to refer back to any of the information that was covered today, it was recorded and will be available to you at a later date. So with that, we're going to close and hope you all have a nice weekend and good luck to you as you finish out fall, winter sports and move into the spring. So thank you all for joining us today.